Welcome back inside TD Garden, everybody. My name is Mike Petraglia, joined once again by old-time friend, basketball buddy, Josue Pavon. It's good to have you back by my side here, this time on the Garden Report on CLNS Media. You ready?
Yes, I'm more than ready, Trags. Our first edition of the Garden Report together for CLNS Media on the parquet, first of many.
Just like Amir Johnson, you returned to your old haunts tonight here in Boston at TD Garden. Amir Johnson, of course, now with the Philadelphia 76ers, signing that one-year, $11 million deal. But he really was not a storyline tonight. The storyline in the Garden Report, this one brought to you by Draft.com, your online fantasy app for great fantasy sports. Use my promo code TRAGS, T-R-A-G-S, for a free game play at Draft.com. This time tonight, the Celtics improved to 3-0 in the preseason, and really the big reason I thought they were able to win 113-96 over Philadelphia was the stellar play of Terry Rozier. I think a lot of people have wondered what exactly will be Terry Rozier's role on this very deep Celtics team when it comes to guards, and I think he showed tonight he is an explosive player. He's not just a good fast player. He's quick, he's explosive, and he showed that tonight with his 15 points, 10 rebounds, and 6 assists.
Yeah, he's the spark off the bench, Trags. We saw that last year, but I think what we saw tonight, the biggest difference I think it was how comfortable he was and how confident he looked out there from start to finish. I felt like him and Marcus Smart were sort of taking turns of dictating the offense, dissecting the defense, and did an excellent job of taking care of the ball, of course. I mean, between the two of them, they really led the floor, and they actually led the Celtics to scoring 37 points in that first quarter. Look, I know it's preseason, but to do it against the Philadelphia 76ers team that had Ben Simmons, that had Markelle Fultz, that also had pretty much all their main players aside J.J. Redick and aside from J.J. Redick
and the gentleman who signed his $148 million max contract, Joel Embiid, did not play tonight.
Aside from those two guys, I mean, this is pretty much the Philadelphia 76ers team that you're going to see. And for the Celtics to come out and put out that sort of offense without their three top scorers, it says a lot about them. It really does.
Okay. Let's point out the fact that the big three for the Celtics, Kyrie, Irving, Gordon Hayward, and Al Horford, did not play tonight. They got the night off because of rest. Also, Marcus Morris, Brad Stevens said before the game, he's still working himself back into condition. Morris even admitted, look, I've still got a little ways to go to get back into game shape. Probably have to lose a little bit of weight to really get to be where I want to be. But back to Terry Rozier, Josue. I think what's impressive and sometimes gets overlooked is how good a rebounder Terry Rozier is. He had 10 rebounds here on Monday night in the preseason win, and that kind of reminds me a little bit of the way Avery Bradley plays.
Yeah, very active, very loose, very hard to box out. I think that's why he's able to get those rebounds. And once he does grab those rebounds, he's up and ready to go. I mean, he's the kind of offense that you need coming off the bench, that big spark that you're going to need for this Celtics team. They're deep. They have a lot of depth in the backcourt, but I think Terry Rozier is a guy who's going to find minutes throughout this Brad Stevens rotation.
Definitely, and let's talk about the other starting guard tonight because, he was given a chance to start because, as we mentioned, the regular starters were given the night off. Marcus Smart, he hit his first three-pointer just like Terry Rozier did, just like Jason Tatum did. They were 3 for 3 to start the game from beyond the arc. Marcus Smart continues to look like a different basketball player, less 25 pounds.
Yes, and I know it's easy to say that that's the biggest reason, but I also think it has a lot to do with how experienced he is. Every single year he comes into training camp with a different attitude, with a determination to be a vital piece of this team, and he, of course, is. But now that, of course, there's all these new guys that are come along, he's sort of the one that stuck around, didn't get traded, wasn't dealt, and I think that shows a lot of how much this franchise believes in him. I think that Marcus Smart, the weight loss is, of course, going to help him on the defensive end, but I think offensively it really gives him that space to go inside, to blow past defenders, and also he's got a little bit more of a lift there on that jump shot. When he's knocking down those three-pointers, I think losing that 25 pounds really does make a difference, and of course makes a huge difference on the fatigue side of things.
Jimmy Toscano and I also spoke about that last week. Josue, you must have been watching it. I appreciate you watching it. That's where you got but no, that's what Jimmy and I talked about last week, is that with that weight loss, the thinking is that Marcus Smart can be fresher later in games and later in the season when he needs those legs for the jump shot.
Yeah, you know what? I think Jimmy must have taken that take from me. I mean, we've talked about it before in the past, but it's okay, Jimmy. You can use that. It's all right. I mean, it's a great way to show how Marcus Smart can really move on the ball and off the ball. You know, I feel like on both sides of the floor it helps, but especially on offense, that losing those 25 pounds is going to make a big difference, I think.
What's also important, and I had the chance to ask Brad Stevens this after the game here on Monday night, I said, do you want to see that second unit play like the first unit, or do you want them to play with their own identity, meaning don't try to do with that first unit like Kyrie and Gordon Hayward and Al Horford do, play to your own strengths? And he said, yeah, playing to your own identity is a good way to put it. That's what we expect, all the players to play to their own identity.
Right, and I think their own identity along with, you know, the young talent, raw talent, I think is going to mesh perfectly. I just think one of the biggest challenges that Stevens is going to have amongst a lot of challenges this season is trying to find minutes for all of these guys. He's got a lot of talent coming off that bench, but finding the guys that he thinks is going to be the ones to fit the 10-man rotations that we're going to see all season long, I think it's going to take a while. I think it's going to take a few weeks, maybe even a couple of months, but I think at the end result is going to be a very, very good basketball team.
I think, you know, and everybody's talked about the different approach in terms of conditioning and rest that the Celtics are taking this year. I think the 10, maybe even 11 players deep on that Celtics roster, that's going to play a factor. This is not an 8 to 9 player man roster, I think, for the Celtics. They're going to need 10 or 11 players, and now that leads us pretty smoothly into the transition to the final point, injuries. The Celtics have had it pretty easy here so far in the first 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks of training camp, but tonight in quarter number 1, they saw one of their most productive players here in training camp and preseason go down with a hyperextended left knee. Aaron Baines came out of the game. He did not return, playing the first 8 minutes and 21 seconds. He was replaced by Daniel Tice, and you got to be a little bit concerned about Aaron Baines, and he is, you know, one of the few truly big men that the Celtics have.
Yeah, he's the enforcer. You're going to need a guy like that. He's going to be one of those guys going to be the last line of defense, and I think that he's someone that can really beat people down low with his physicality. I love his physicality. I love how he's able to also score a little bit, but most importantly, he's able to make the switches and make the defensive stops that this Celtics team is going to need. My only knock on him, I would say, is just that he tends to foul more than he should. You know, he'll pick up fouls for you, but you're going to need someone like that coming off the bench or maybe potentially starting. It all depends on how fast Marcus Morris comes along. Right. But we'll have to wait and see. But hopefully he won't be out for long because they're really going to need that defense down low. And he's going to be a very, very important part of that.
And the irony is that's the one area where they don't have a particularly large number of players with experience or quality size. So they're going to have to hopefully get him back or look somewhere else, perhaps around the NBA or in the G League, something like that, to see if they can replace him. After the game, Brad Stevens said he wasn't sure. He did not have an update. They'll have to wait to see how the swelling reacts to his left knee, and after he gets ice, they'll have a better idea of just what the significant injury is to the hyperextended left knee of Aaron Baines. Well, that'll be a wrap here inside TD Garden. The Celtics win their third straight preseason game over the winless Philadelphia 76ers. 113-96 is the final. They will wrap up the preseason on Wednesday night in Charlotte. All of the starters are expected to play in that game, all the regular starters, that is. And, of course, next Tuesday night in Cleveland, it'll be the Celtics and Cavaliers in the first regular season game of the 17-18 season. This has been the Garden Report. He is Josue Pavon. I'm Mike Petraglia. The Garden Report brought to you by Draft.com, your online fantasy home for fantasy sports. Use my promo code TRAGS, T-R-A-G-S, for a free game play. Once again, that's at Draft.com. He's Josue Pavon. I'm Mike Petraglia, CLNS Media.